Hey guys, it's another week, another episode of Gotham's final season, and it is going so perfectly so far. It does seem they're going heavy on the gas pedal this season, going all out, not wasting any time, because usually the phrase we use to complain is filler episode, but the series from a pure no man's land arc perspective out of the comics does not even seem to have a filler moment. Obviously, what they're trying to achieve over here, with this being the final season, is ensuring this season of Gotham leaves us after having set up a Gotham ready for the Dark Knight to rise and fight all the darkness for the rest of his life. But in the spirit of not wasting much time doing introductions to this video, and without further ado, let's get started and let's go. Number 1. The entire situation with the little kid, the orphan, his description of what is going on with his friends. It all reminds me of one of the subplots and complications close to the end of the 0-year arc in the comics. People held against their will by anarchy, some of them actually willing, but mostly against their will. Number 2. Apparently the witch is a returning character, Poison Ivy. Now Ivy, as I did state on my premiere review, is quite different on the pages of the No Man's Land arc. Over there, she plays the role that Barbara and the Sirens play on the series. She is the endless supply of food in the form of fresh fruit. On the other hand though, on the pages of the other arc all of this is based on, that being 0 Year, she, and if memory serves me well, and I think it does, only played a minor role and not even as Poison Ivy. It was all really about Nygma stealing the research of Dr. Pamela Eiley to use it against Gotham later on the pages of that arc. To be clear and to establish this point very early on in our reviews over here, most of these villains that we're seeing on the series this season had no roles in that arc. It was mostly the Riddler, the Red Hood Gang, Anarchy, Penguin abducted by Bruce Wayne at some point to set a trap for the Red Hood Gang, but that's really it. Of course I don't need to remind you of this, but capturing people with their own vines is of course a Poison Ivy trademark right out of the comics. So it was just like so many images just started flowing through my head right out of the comics with Ivy doing that the moment that Bruce Wayne walked in on that scene. Number 3. Not really sure, but I think that Harvey's welcome to the Badlands as he drove through Gotham with Jim on their way to save the orphans was a direct reference to the AMC series, Into the Badlands. As stated though, can be sure, the term Badlands can refer to a lot of things, it's ringing a lot of bells, and I do believe as well that it might have a comic book significance. I just can't remember any off the top of my head. So if you do remember anything or think of anything in that regard, let me know in the comments. Number 4, we've got Sykes and his men in this look that is projecting the introduction of Bane later on this season. And by later, I mean pretty soon considering the episode count. But all in all, just a little bit of foreshadowing here. The one thing that did feel out of sync and bothered me a little bit though is the fact that they introduced new players on the final season and with only 9 episodes to go. So regardless of how interesting it gets and the fact that it does act like a little bit of an Easter egg, which I'll talk about in a moment, it is still a little bit unnecessary. But speaking of that Easter egg though, number 5, the fact that Poison Ivy's current territory is Robinson Park is very reminiscent of the No Man's Land arc. Over there as well, it is her hideout and base of operations. I did want to mention that significance last week, but I was thinking maybe they're not going to play it the same way as in the No Man's Land arc in the comics. But nonetheless, on the pages of the same arc as well, Robinson Park is exactly where all the fruits grow to get dispensed to the rest of Gotham, as well as the place where she ends up caring for a lot of orphans. Now this kind of puts the whole Orphans arc into a little bit of a perspective on this episode, even though still in my personal opinion quite unnecessary and a waste of precious time, regardless of the fact that it was done really well, and of course an arc out of sync. Number 6. Edward Nygma is forever going to be remembered as my favorite character on Gotham. The guy suffering with his sleep adventures gets a bit hilarious on this episode. He chains himself to bed to make sure he does not go on his sleepy adventures, wakes up extremely excited. I'm still chained to bed, I'm still here, I haven't gone on any sleepy adventures last night, only to realize moments later that he did get up, did unchain himself, and did go on an adventure, and ended up abducting and torturing a biker gang member. But there are a couple of Easter eggs to be addressed over here in number 7. The Street Demons biker gang, that is actually right out of the comics, and they did as well play a role in the No Man's Land arc. Now if you've either read the arc from the comics or you watched my review video last week, you probably know by now that the Riddler has no real role in the No Man's Land arc in the comics. He does have one in the 0 Year arc, I did talk about that last week. I did expect as well that they might be going that way with him. Apparently though, I was wrong, because in the pages of the No Man's Land arc, the Street Demons biker gang's main beef is with a character known as the Ventriloquist, aka Arnold Wesker. So I personally believe that this is where they're going with Nygma on this season. They're creating the show's version of the Ventriloquist. The Ventriloquist in the comics suffers from multiple personality disorder, as seen with Nygma over the course of these 2 episodes so far. I'm not really talking about Nygma and the Riddler personalities, because that is really a struggle between 2 sides of him, dark and light. But instead I believe that whatever Hugo Strange did with him at the end of Season 4 kind of gave him this new side personality, one that covers a missing bit out of the No Man's Land arc, and without actually having to introduce an all-new character presented in Wesker from the comics. Now needless to state is that the fight within the No Man's Land arc between Wesker and the biker gang is over the same thing that everyone is fighting over, turf and territory. Then moving on to number 8, Mother, yet another villain on this episode. Now Mother was introduced at the very end of Season 4, we did see her with that mask, with that kid. The kid that we do see on this episode as well is known in the comics as Orphan. Now the actual significance of Mother in the comics is not about who she is or what she is, she's just a mysterious figure. It rather lies in who Orphan is, that boy that ran to Jim Gordon, the boy that we see smashing that corpse at the end of Season 4 with that hammer. That is who really matters, because Mother in the comics is a creator of assassins out of orphan children. So, Mother's operative over here, the kid Orphan that bumps into Jim, he is either a reference to David Cain, aka the Orphan, or to Cassandra Cain, Mother's main operative in the comics. Without going into much detail over here as well, let's not forget that Cassandra Cain is one of many versions of Batgirl in the comics. But the reference though does extend beyond that, because in the comics Cassandra Cain is not only daughter to David Cain, but also to the assassin known as Lady Shiva, who on the pages of the source material happens to be a villain on the pages of both the Green Arrow and the Batman comics. But number 9, Ivy once again is definitely a villain on this season, as opposed to her No Man's Land non-villain persona. Now for a very brief moment over there, Bruce does seem to get to her. She agrees to help just like she does with the fruit supply and the caring for all the orphans in the No Man's Land arc, and the deal from Bruce's end, Batman's end, remains the same as in the comics, one thing for another. You do this for me and I'll leave you in the territory that you've claimed alone. But number 10, we're back on track with Penguin and Nygma. I believe Nygma is going to lead the Street Demons gang going forward, and they're going to have a lot of beef with the strongest man in Gotham, that being Penguin. We already know that Nygma has got his own beef with Penguin as well, so this is only going to get more interesting going forward, and all the way until the end of the season. Number 11, there was this one episode every season where Harvey is the star of the episode, and this was it. Everything about Harvey screams awesome, from his comments, to his screams, to his portrayal of extreme fear. Donald Logue is just as epic as ever in his role as Harvey Bullock. Number 12, there's a new kitty in town and her name is Selina Kyle. So Selina gets her cure, Ivy was not playing Bruce, not planning on killing Selina. Selina does still care for Ivy, like an older sister, even though Ivy is now 3 iterations in, the actual older sister of the two. But back to the cure though, it might not have killed Selina, but the transformation has happened. We've got Selina turning into her comic book namesake, Catwoman. Now I don't really believe that the cure is what transformed her, it was merely a catalyst. We already had that incident a couple of seasons back, her falling out of a window, the cats surrounding her, so I think that whatever happened then and saved her then is what got activated with this cure. But number 13, Jim between a rock and a hard place saved by Barbara, kinda supports what I spoke of last week, the possibility that Barbara over here will become Barbara Gordon from the comics. But I guess I need to make this a little bit clear, because last week everyone thought when I said Barbara Gordon that I'm talking about Barbara Gordon the daughter. Instead, I'm actually talking about Barbara Gordon, the wife and the mother. But finally though, here comes number 14, the safe haven, safe place to live, introduced by Lucius Fox by the very end of the episode. That is actually the show introducing their own version of the Robinson Park on this arc in the comics. But all in all, this was a really solid episode. Yes, there were a couple of new additions made that I did feel were unnecessary with a limited episode count to the end of the season, but still the episode did achieve something. It identified who the Riddler really is on this season, what's going on with him, the product of what Hugo Strange did to him, bringing him back to life, and it did bring about one of those moments that we've all been waiting for. Selina Kyle becoming the show's version of Catwoman. It all as well did work in a way that had the series match the No Man's Land arc from the comics to a very great extent. But with an episode quite great on events and quite full of Easter eggs, you can let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode, how you think it will play out for the rest of the season, and if there are any Easter eggs I might have missed. You can let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, and if that were to be the case, you can always subscribe and enable notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. But until the next episode of Gotham, our next review, and our next Easter egg hunt, thank you all so much for tuning into this one, and have a great day.